Typhus, the Herald of Nurgle, is the Death Guard Lord of the Death Guard Traitor Legion's first plague company, and the host of the terrible plague known as the Destroyer Hive. He is a Champion of Nurgle, a Death Guard Sorcerer, and the former first captain of the Death Guard Legion. He was born Kala Typhon on the Death Guard's eventual homeworld of Barbarus. He was a half-breed, the result of one of the overlords of Barbarus taking a liking to his human mother. For this, his mother's fellow villagers drowned her. As a child, upon the toxic planet of Barbarus, Kala Typhon was troubled by nightly phenomena over which he believed he had no control. Objects would shudder and smash around him whenever he was frightened or angered, and plants would wither and die under his gaze. These phantom powers troubled him greatly, but he resolved to turn them to his advantage. By the time Typhon reached maturity, he had learned to master the psychic energies that resonated within him each night, a feat of will that impressed his elders greatly. With this act, Typhon became stronger in his resolve to succeed than any of his peers. When Mortarion defected from the overlords after witnessing their atrocities, Typhon was the first person the Primarch encountered, and the young child helped lead him to safety. During his adulthood, Typhus was a champion of Mortarion's early Death Guard in his war against the warlord of Barbarus. When the Emperor reclaimed his lost son Mortarion from the poisonous mists of Barbarus and reunited him with the superhuman warriors born from his gene seed, Typhon was amongst those chosen to join their ranks. As he joined the Legion, his psychic potential was suppressed through training due to the anti-psycha sentiment of his Primarch. Nonetheless, through his rugged talent, Typhon was eventually able to rise to the prestigious position of First Captain. He shared a strong bond with Mortarion, the two being close comrades due in part to their shared origin as outsiders, even among Barbarus. During the Great Crusade, Typhon often proved his ability to shrug off wounds and effects of hostile actions alike, becoming a legend amongst his warriors. On the planet of Rothric IX, during the eponemic Tribes War of Rothric IX, he managed to withstand a hard blow to the side of his head, and though this blow would have easily killed a lesser man, Typhon was merely driven into a cold rage, and taking up a short iron bar, he killed every tribal warrior around him. In another episode, Typhon saved a squad of Sisters of Silence on the planet of Madrigal by throwing himself onto a malfunctioning crack grenade. After less than a week in the Apothecarian, he had already healed and discharged himself as fit for active duty. According to Typhon himself, he was secretly converted to worship of the gods of chaos during the Zaramond campaign, receiving revelation at the touch of the hand of an old woman. The foremost chaplain of the word bearers, Erebus, inducted Typhon into the secrets of the Seven-Bellied Lodge, one of the warrior lodges that had begun to spread throughout the Space Marine legions in the later days of the Great Crusade. Typhon's allegiance to chaos predated that of his own Primarch or of Horus himself. With the help of his new gods, Typhon became first captain of the Death Guard and commander of the battleship Terminus Est. Typhon was not particularly loyal to Mortarion and always wished to travel the galaxy and forge his own destiny in the name of the Ruinous Powers. During the Horus Heresy, when Mortarion joined Horus in his rebellion, Typhon helped orchestrate the massacre of loyalist space marines on Estevan III when Horus's fleet virus bombed the surface and killed nearly every living thing above ground. Because Battle Captain Nathaniel Garro was unable to join his loyalist comrades on the surface, Typhon detailed him to the frigate Eisenstein, along with Commander Ignatius Gralga, privately ordering Gralga to deal with Garro and his men when necessary. Typhon was furious when the Eisenstein broke from orbit without joining the virus bombing. Realizing that Gralga had failed, he commanded the Terminus Est in pursuit of the frigate and managed to severely damage the vessel, but was unable to stop it from escaping into the warp. Later during the Heresy, Typhon led half of the Death Guard in a splinter fleet, while Mortarion himself took command of the other. During his campaign of misery and misdirection against the Dark Angels, Typhon's fleet attempted to acquire the two-Chulcha engine in fulfillment of Nurgle's designs, but was foiled by Lionel Johnson during the Battle of Bereditis. Hounded by a Dark Angel's retribution force under the command of Coswin, Typhon's fleet later reappeared at the Zaramant system. There, the Death Guard forces were welcomed by Luther and his fallen angels. Fleeing from Coswin and his Dark Angels, Luther hid the Death Guard fleet while deceiving his former comrades. After being instructed that the time was right by Erebus, Typhon and his forces rejoined Mortarion during the purging of the loyalist world of Enix. Disappointed that Mortarion had still not yet embraced chaos, Typhon began a scheme to force him to accept the truth. When the Death Guard's fleet embarked for Terra, Typhon framed the navigators of the fleet with evidence that they were agents of Malcador the Sigillite, executing them with his grave wardens in the name of protecting the Death Guard. Typhon then assured his Primarch that he could lead the fleet to Terra without their help, using a group of psychic legionnaires who were librarians in all but name only. Instead, he led them into a trap, becalming the Death Guard fleet in the warp, adrift, helpless, and at the mercy of chaos. Then came the Destroyer Plague, and the Death Guard was struck down as the Legion suffered agonies beyond imagination, not even being able to suffer death. Enraged at the trap he had led them into, Mortarion himself confronted his former friend aboard the Terminus Est. Typhon expressed his desire for Mortarion to accept Nurgle's embrace, but instead the Primarch attacked the first captain. Typhon's psychic abilities allowed him to hold off the Primarch's attacks for a time. However, Mortarion eventually prevailed and struck down Typhon with his scythe. Due to the Destroyer Plague, Typhon quickly came back to life. Mortarion then revealed his trump card. Unleashing the deformed Ignatius, Grolga strangled Typhon to death, fulfilling his oath to Mortarion to kill the first captain. However, Typhon quickly came back to life, and both the first captain and demon laughed as Mortarion realized he had been betrayed. Grolga had fulfilled his oath, but Typhon was beyond death. Grolga revealed that any oath he had taken to Mortarion was vastly eclipsed by his service to Nurgle. Typhon, having orchestrated this grand corruption, was rewarded most of all, as Grolga's essence entered into him, swelling in size. His skin and armor became one. Great funnels of pestilential bone burst from his body. Into these poured thousands of Nurgle's demon flies, gnawing him from the inside out until his rotten shell teemed and heaved with squirming life. Typhon became a great hollow colony of disease-carrying supernatural insects. The bone funnels that sprouted from his back coughed black decay as Nurgle's servants regurgitated the psychic energies pulsing through what was left of his herald's body. Typhus, Herald of Nurgle, and the host of the Destroyer Hive had been born, most blessed and most cursed of all his now repugnant kin. During the siege of Terra, Typhus walked with Bertrabo, Abaddon, and Zardo Layak to summon the demonic influence of the demon prince of Nurgle, Corpax Ataplai, into the Imperial Palace in order to subvert the Imperial defenses there. He next took part in the assault on the Colossi Gate against forces led by Jagatai Khan, Constantine Valdor, and Raldoran, first captain of the Blood Angels. Later in the siege, Mortarion informed Typhus that his old foe Coswin had landed a force of Dark Angels which had captured the Astronomicon and dispatched the first captain to take it back. After Jagatai Khan led a massive attack on the Lion's Gate spaceport and banished Mortarion into the warp, Typhus reappeared and took command of the Legion after rallying key leaders such as Kaifa Morag and Zadal Crossius. Typhus subsequently rallied the Death Guard to retake the Astronomicon before it could be reactivated and lead Robert Gilliman and his reinforcements to Terra. He tried to tempt the fallen angel librarians such as the Zahariel to join Horus's cause, but to no avail. Typhus then launched a full-scale assault on the Astronomicon. Typhus's forces were able to penetrate the Hollow Mountain and seemed to have victory in his grasp, despite a determined assault by the Dark Angels and forces of Sigismund. However, Kila was able to lead a sacrificial prayer amongst the faithful throngs that caused a psychic backlash, which not only threw back the Death Guard but also reactivated the Astronomicon. Though Horus was eventually defeated, the traitor legions claimed by the Chaos Gods were changed forever. After the War Master's death at the hands of the Emperor, the traitor legionnaires fled Terra and burned their way across the Segmentum Solar towards the Eye of Terra. They were pursued by these legions still loyal to the Emperor. As the great scouring blazed across the stars, the traitor legions made new homes within the trackless reaches of the Eye. Typhus found himself fighting against the most surreal creatures he had ever seen. Worms of living crystal were shattered by his great scythe blade. 8-armed minotaurs were reduced to biological sludge by his psychic blasts, and shapely sirens met their end on the mutant horn of bone that had sprouted from his forehead. Just as before, he survived. Mortarion, by this point a demon prince of Nurgle, eventually claimed a distant demon world known as the Plague Planet. There he ruled as king of demons and corrupt heretic Astartes alike. The demon Primarch shaped his demon world to resemble Barbarus, his former homeworld. Typhus was sickened by the sentimentality of his lord. His loyalty was to Nurgle alone, and Nurgle waxed strong when mortals feared death. By this point, Typhus was an unholy legend in his own right, and was not content with a sedentary existence as his Primarch's right hand. Instead, he marshaled those among the Death Guard whose bitter enmity for the Imperium still burned fiercely, forming a plague fleet that took to the tides of the warp once more. Since the Heresy, Typhus has continued to spread the glory of Nurgle across the galaxy, leading a contingent of Death Guard of the Plague Fleet from the Terminus Est. Typhus is known to have laid waste to many worlds and waged many battles in Nurgle's name. He has even traveled to the Garden of Nurgle inside the warp itself, where he has battled cornered demons. After killing the leader of this demon army, he took the dog-headed demon's guts and brought them to Nurgle's palace itself as a gift for Nurgle's cauldron. The Lord of Decay was so pleased that for his great deed, Typhus was honored with being allowed to dip his Man Reaper into the filth of the throne of Nurgle. Typhus turned the entire populations of Protheus and Karen Denise 7 with all their billions of people into plague bearers. He destroyed the population of the Shrine World, Jonah's World, with a carefully orchestrated pandemic and unleashed the Red Flux on the planet of Florence, wiping out the entire male population there. Typhus has also laid waste to the world of Legeta with a noise plague, where the infected became forced to eternally sing a hymn to the Lord of Decay. In 757 M40, he killed 23 billion people on Hydra Minoris with the Zombie Plague. In the 13th Black Crusade, Typhus's Plague Fleet was the first Chaos Force encountered by the Imperium. In the Crusade, his forces went on to ravage the Agrippina sector. He also oversaw the infestation and desecration of the Holy Planet Annunciation by himself. In M41, Typhus once again attempted to unite the two Chulcha engine with its brother devices, this time in cooperation with the fallen angel Astelan. The two planned to gather the original Fallen with Typhus's own forces to create a new legion known as the Death Legion. However, they were foiled by the Dark Angels led by Azrael and, surprisingly, the fallen enigmatic angel Cypher in the Battle of the Caliban system in 998 M41. During the era Indomitus, after Fabius Bile stole the Nurgle artifact known as the Arc Corno-Contagious from the Scourge Stars, Typhus pursued the former Empress Children Chief Apothecary with his Plague Fleet in a bid to reclaim it and with it the Spider's head. In the ensuing War of the Spider, Typhus battled not only Bile's Tirata and his Shriven allies, but also a Custodes force under Shield Captain Tyvar. Thanks to Bile's machinations, Typhus was unable to corner the Spider and had to withdraw in the face of the Custodes. After the creation of the Great Rift, Typhus launched a major attack on the Caradon sector, besieging the Forged World of Metallica and corrupting it with a computer phage known as the Nemesis Worm after a prolonged battle. Typhus later appeared as part of Mortarion's armada during the Death Guard invasion of Ultramar. Typhus led a splinter fleet which terrorized the outer regions of Ultramar. During the invasion, Typhus no longer maintained even slight reverence or respect for his Primarch. The Herald of Nurgle scolded Mortarion and stated that he was closer to the vision of Nurgle. Typhus expressed no desire to work under Mortarion directly, but was willing to take part in the Ultramar campaign simply to further Nurgle's design. Following the battle on Baraminio and the instigation of the war in the Rift, Nurgle lost interest in the war in Ultramar and ordered his forces to pull back to the Scourge Stars to defend them against rival gods. Typhus obeyed the Plague God's orders, informing Mortarion that he would be leaving the Ultramar zone with substantial amounts of the Death Guard. The act angered Mortarion, who wished to remain in the region and slay Guilliman with the god Blight, which is a powerful Nurgle disease that the great unclean one Kugath started to create during the Plague Wars at the behest of Mortarion. Typhus scolded his father for this apparently insubordination before leaving. Now let's talk about his weapons and abilities. Typhus is a formidable Psyker who has been favored by Nurgle as a Death Guard Sorcerer and is able to call forth both Nurgle's Wrath and many of the powers offered by the Nurglish Psychic discipline. In addition to his formidable psychic abilities, Typhus also employs an array of malefic weapons and war gear gifted to him by the Lord of Decay. These include Cataphractii pattern Terminator armor. Typhus wears an ancient suit of Cataphractii Terminator armor which encloses his corpulent, Nurgle-blessed Plague Marine body. This archaic battle blade dates back to the time of the Horus Heresy. He also wields Man Reaper, a demonic power scythe, said that even the smell of the pitted scythe can lay a mortal man low for solar weeks. Any mortal being that is touched by its blade quickly collapses into a pile of festering bone. As Kala Typhon, Typhus often utilized a hand flamer with Kim munitions in conjunction with his master-crafted Death Shroud power scythe. The Destroyer Hive. Typhus's mighty Terminator armor has become as much a part of him as the demonic insects that thrive inside. Fused chimneys of bone sprout from his torso, and in the thick of battle, these tubes will belch out great clouds of demonic flies. Each buzzes into the cracks and gaps they find in the armor of Typhus's opponents, stinging their victim with demonic poison until there is nothing left but a pile of plague-riddled corpses. The grotesque demonic flies that infest the Destroyer Hive are truly disgusting creatures, though in the eyes of Typhus and of Father Nurgle himself, each is a diminutive angel of decay, just waiting to pass on the blessings of wrath and entropy to all they touch. Blight Grenades. The Death Guard's Plague Marines long ago perfected the grisly practice of using the enemy's decapitated heads as crude grenades, hacked from the neck, filled with maggot-laden toxic goop and sealed with wax. These projectiles burst apart on impact to spray liquid disease and biting, stinging flies in all directions. The Winds of Chaos. Typhus is a Death Guard Sorcerer who can call forth the corruption from within his soul, unleashing waves of psychic energy that are different for each sorcerer. A sheet of iridescent warp fire for the followers of Tzeentch, a golden cloud of rapturous agony, or a rain of hypnotic light for the worshippers of Slaanesh, and a stream of bilious filth for those devoted to Nurgle like Typhus. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and leave a comment for the algorithm, and stay tuned for more.